Alright, so, a while back we put this radio in the truck, and I tested it out, just turning it on, and just turning the key on and running it, and it seemed all well. But then I started it up, getting a lot of radio noise, radio interference. So, dug through all my old stereo stuff, found this noise filter. So we're going to put this in. It was missing the ground wire. I guess the ground wire had pulled out. I took it apart, and they did some awful soldering in this thing. And I went ahead and resoldered this red wire and the blue wire also, as well as put a new ground wire on it. This is actually the leftover ground wire from this radio. It was way too long, so I just cut off what I didn't need, and it actually had a ring terminal on it, so it kind of made a nice little ground wire for this noise filter. So what we're going to do to make sure that this actually fixes the issue before we splice into our radio wire is we're just going to that main power wire we plugged into the fuse box, so we're just going to plug one of these wires into the fuse box, this one here, and then hook this up to that wire that goes to the radio, and then we'll ground this, and we'll see if our noise goes away, and if it does, then we'll actually wire it all in. This normally should be hooked up to your constant power, assuming that that's where the radio draws its main power from, and that it only uses the switched power basically just to do a relay to turn the radio on. So how most radios work. We'll assume that this one's the same way. If it's not, we'll have to tie into the switched lead on the radio, but I would assume that I think if I remember right, the biggest fuse was on the constant power, so it should be good there. So let me get this thing just temporarily wired in, and we'll see if all that awful noise goes away. Alright, so I just got this thing temporarily wired in. Still got a buzzing. Yeah, it's not working. So we'll try the switched power. Yeah, that's no good. And we do have it on a good ground. And it does it with the radio too, it's not just this CD input. And I've got the volume all the way down. As you can see, even with the volume all the way down, well, we've got the buzz, the crackle and pop. Definitely still has the buzz. So let me get up under the dash and we'll tie into the switched power and see what it does. Alright, so as we've confirmed, it does not make the noise with it all. We've got that noise suppression thing in there, and we're still crackling. One thing I did notice, maybe not, you can hear it pop when I turn the blower off. So I think what I'm going to do, what I'm going to start with trying, is go ahead and, well, we're going to do two things. First thing we're going to try is to reground the stereo. And I think what I'll do is run a fresh new ground somewhere and ground it. I'm also going to check to make sure I have a good body ground on the truck, and I'll confirm that first. Once I confirm I have a good body ground, I'm going to run a new ground wire and ground it to probably some screw under the dash or something. Just something that I can confirm is a real good ground, because I don't know where the stock radio grounding goes, and I don't know what it grounds with. You know, it may ground with that blower motor or something, but you know, and it may go 10 feet before it grounds. So I'd like to get a short ground, good short ground somewhere close to the radio, and then we'll go from there. If I still have the noise after that, I will probably try jumpering together the power and accessory wires and run them both through that ground loop oscillator. If that works, what I may have to do is put that in the constant. So I could run two of them, one for the switched and one for the accessory and one for the constant, or I could run a relay. So feeding in, so you would have coming from the battery, you would have your ground oscillator. Then you would have that go to a relay right here. Your radio would come in and hook up. Your constant power would hook up where it hooks up to the relay. Then you would have your normal AC power switch, your accessory power switch. That would be what powers the relay. So that would, and then on the switched side of the relay, you would feed to the radio. And so all your switched accessory power wire, your stock wire, is doing is powering that relay. All the power coming to the radio would be running through that noise filter. So we could try that. But a quick test to try that would just be to wire it all together without the relay. It would just be constant on, so you couldn't leave it like that, because you know, the radio would be on all the time. But that will be a good test, and if that fixed it, then I'll just throw a relay in there, and I think I have a few, and that would filter all the power going to the radio. The other possibility is that that noise filter is just not very good, and it's not doing what it should. But let's start with the ground, because that's probably the easiest thing, and a lot of radio noise is normally caused from a bad ground. So, which I'm using the stock wiring, and the stock radio did not have any issues. So I'm not sure what that's going to get us, but let's try there first. So we're checking over our grounds. So coming from the ground terminal on the battery, we have a body ground that goes right here. It's good and tight. And then it goes to a frame ground. And then we want to take a look and see, we should have either some frame grounds or body grounds on the, maybe on the back of the head or somewhere over there. Of course I can't see any of that, but they should be there. We'll have to maybe get up under it and verify it. It would not hurt to run a new ground from somewhere on the engine because we do have a good engine ground, because the main ground wire goes over here right to the alternator. So it wouldn't hurt to come off the engine somewhere and go back to the body. We do have quite a bit of stuff that grounds to the body, so it never hurts just to have more body grounds. So we may just go ahead and do that. This is quite a small wire for all the stuff that grounds through the body. And of course, if things are like they should be, there should be other grounding points to the body, like a engine to frame or engine to body, that should help. And this should not be the only grounding point. We should kind of have like a loop of grounds that come basically from the battery to the body to the frame, and then we should probably have battery to engine to frame, or engine to body, something like that, that kind of just makes a real big ground. But you never know if all that stuff's still there, so it never would hurt just to throw another ground wire somewhere, and we could come off of say like that ground right there on the firewall. We could come off of there, ground there, and come back to the engine somewhere and add another ground wire. So, or over to there, so we've got a ground point over in that corner, ground into the body, and we could ground there. So I'll probably just go ahead and throw another ground there somewhere. It's not going to hurt, and you never really can have too many grounds on a motor. It really can help things out, especially with noise through the radio. So we'll get that done, and we will also ground. I'll probably start with doing a better ground on the radio. We'll see if that fixes the issue. If it doesn't, we'll probably go ahead and just add another ground under the hood. And then if that doesn't work, then we're going to try the noise filter on both the accessory and power wire. If that does not work, then we've got something going on with this radio, and we may never get the noise out of it, or our noise filter is just crap and doesn't filter noise. If all that doesn't work and we still have noise going through it, I might see if we have noise coming out the RCA outputs on this radio. If we don't, I may just throw an amp in here and run out to the amp. It's possible that the amp built into the radio is producing the noise and not the input signal from the radio itself, so that if we ran it through an amp, we wouldn't have any noise. So that's all some stuff to think about and options that we can take. Don't really want to replace that radio because, like I said, those are hard to find. So let's get busy and see what we can do to fix this thing. Alright, so what I've done is on the emergency brake bracket up in there, there was a ground bolt, and there was already something else grounded there. And so I'm going to also throw in the ground for my noise filter. And I just had a scrap piece of wire. Yeah, I know it's green. I guess we're using household wiring standards on this. But it was just a scrap piece of wire that I had laying around. And we're going to run that for a ground for the radio. And then you can see I just have it dangling down right there. We'll connect that up temporarily, see if that fixes our ground issue. If it does, then we're all good. If not, we'll proceed with trying to put this thing in line with the constant power and accessory, or actually we'll probably try it with just the accessory power first. If that fixes it, then we'll just put this on it through, wired up through the accessory power. If not, then we will we'll try it with both. So running all power of the radio through here, and if that works, then we're going to have to put a relay through this thing to control the radio. So if this noise filter does its job, one way or the other, we should be able to get this thing, the sound quality cleared up on it. So unless it is some kind of a weird grounding issue. So then we won't need that. We'll fix it other ways. So let's get all this stuff wired up and we'll see how we make out on it. So we still have the buzzing. I don't know if y'all can hear it. Still buzzing. See if it still makes a noise when I turn off the blower. Yep. So, it was not a ground issue. Or at least if it is a ground issue, it's not the grounding there. We could still have a grounding issue from, you know, basically like a body ground issue somewhere. But I feel pretty confident about the body ground. So we're going to move ahead with trying to put that noise filter in line with the accessory power switch, or the accessory power wire. And if that doesn't work, then we'll hook it up to both and see.